Now, I know that Game Week 32 isn't even over yet, but I couldn't resist making a video for you guys. So here are players to buy and avoid for Game Week 33. Now, I wanted to start off the video on a bit of a goalkeeper theme, and I think David Raya is probably the best goalkeeper in FPL right now. I think the only question you have to ask yourself is, do you want David Raya to be one of your 3 assets that you pick in FPL? I mean, for me, he seems to be an easy route into double Arsenal defence. If you're already on, for example, Gabriel, he comes in a little bit cheaper than the likes of Ben White and Saliba, who I'd suggest are the other defenders you might consider for a double up. And of course, he's going to score the same amount of points for keeping a clean sheet. He's nailed on to play every game, right? He's completely replaced Ramsdale in that 11. Arsenal are by far and away the best defence in the league. That's 3 in a row they've kept now in the Premier League. Game week 33, they got Villa. Wouldn't rule out a clean sheet in that. Wolves and Chelsea, they could keep 2 clean sheets there. Probably be a bit tricky against Tottenham. And then Bournemouth and Man United, I mean, they could conceivably keep, 4 or 5 clean sheets in that run of 6 fixtures. Just in general, it's quite slim pickings in terms of goalkeepers in the game, right? And I think, yes, he doesn't necessarily make a lot of saves. I guess that's the only downside to Raya, right? It's kind of clean sheet or bust with him. But the amount of clean sheets Arsenal have been keeping at the moment, gotta think there's more to come. And I definitely say, if you can get him in, right, you don't already have 3 Arsenal players and he's a simple transfer for you. He's the best goalkeeper in the game. Continuing on with the theme of goalkeepers, I think Neto is a fairly decent pick. Bournemouth, they're not too bad defensively. 7 clean sheets from 29 starts for Neto. I think it's pretty good. When you look at how many clean sheets are actually going around in the league this season, I don't think that's too bad. It's definitely one of, puts him in sort of one of the top goalkeepers for total clean sheets. But another thing I like about Neto is just the sheer amount of saves that he makes per 90. 3.72 means he pretty much gets saves bonus points every game. And I think the best goalkeepers we've seen in FPL of seasons gone by, and it's unfortunately something Raya doesn't really get. They not only keep a decent amount of clean sheets, but they make saves and get saves bonus pretty much every game. And I think Neto, he ticks the boxes of a goalkeeper that can do that. Fixtures, not absolutely amazing coming up, but I imagine most people will have Neto potentially if they look to bring him in, and then another goalkeeper alongside him, potentially maybe Dubravka, someone like that, right? Game week 33, Man United, could be saves in that one. Game week 34, I expect maybe a clean sheet and some saves, and then saves bonus throughout the future fixtures as well. I just think balance, like I said, of clean sheets and saves is what you want in a goalkeeper, and Neto kind of delivers that. I think, though, I do prefer Jordan Pickford. I wanted to talk about both players just because, your preference might be Neto, but I think I just prefer Pickford. Everton, fairly decent defensively. You can see there he's kept a couple more clean sheets than Neto has. Played a few more games, but kept 9 clean sheets compared to Neto's 7. And again, he does make a good amount of saves. Not quite as many as Neto does per game, but 3 saves per game is enough to get him bonus points, I think, pretty much most fixtures. And when you look at what he's got coming up, Chelsea, yes, that's a fairly tough fixture, but Chelsea, you don't know what you're going to get when they show up. Everton, I'd completely rule out a potential clean sheet there, but I definitely expect him to get at least saves bonus in that one. Then he's got Nottingham Forest and Liverpool. I think there's potentially a clean sheet in those 2 fixtures. The Merseyside derby, it can, be a bit disappointing occasionally. There have been times where that's been a 0-0 boring draw, and that's exactly what Everton will want in that game. So that could potentially happen. And then Nottingham Forest, they could keep a clean sheet there. Then they've got Brentford, who are not in the best of forms, although obviously did all right against Aston Villa. But at the moment, they're fighting relegation. Luton and then Sheffield United. That's a pretty decent fixture run. And you look at him, 4.6 million. He's actually a little bit cheaper than Neto as well. So a little bit cheaper, better fixtures, and has kept more clean sheets across the season. Again, another keeper with a double in 34. I quite like Pickford going forwards. Now, I've been bigging up Aït-Nouri before the past couple of game weeks, and I think rightly so. The guy's got 6 attacking returns in his last 7 games in all competition. I'd actually say, across the whole of the league at the moment, he's one of the most attacking defenders because of the injuries that Wolves have in their team at the moment. Aït-Nouri's basically been playing cam or left wing, centre attacking mid or left wing. And yeah, his returns, like I said, 6 attacking returns in his last 7 games in all competitions for Wolves. He's looked really good. He's got Nottingham Forest 33, double game week in 34, Luton in 35, difficult fixture against City in 36 and then Palace in 37. It was looking really good for him, but I had to talk about him because unfortunately he picked up an injury in Game Week 32. Looks like he's done, well, I don't know the severity of the injury yet. We'll have to wait and see what Gary O'Neill has to say in his press conferences ahead of Game Week 33, but apparently it's a calf injury. Now, that would certainly put me off buying him as it stands at the moment, and if I owned him, you know, calf injury could leave him out for a bit of time, potentially. Obviously, like I said, we need to wait and see what is said about him in the press conferences. But yeah, could now be a player to avoid despite his attacking upside, which is a real shame because I really like him as an option. And yeah, he's been basically playing as a number 10/left winger recently, which is just ridiculous for a 4.7 million defender. And he's looked really good. I saw a clip of him beating 2 or 3 men on the ball in Game Week 32. So yeah, what can he do? He's got an injury. Just have to wait and see how he is. I just wanted to give Gabriel a bit of love because I think he's probably the best defender in the game right now. And you probably already have him, but you know, if you don't, definitely try to get him in your team. I mean, nailed on to start, double in 34. All of those things, if you remember that I said about David Raya, apply to Gabriel, right? I mean, there's 4 or 5 clean sheets in that run of fixtures, I would say. He's definitely Arsenal's biggest threat from set pieces as well. I feel like he could have scored a couple of goals by the looks of it against Brighton. And Arsenal are probably the best team in the league from set pieces as well. And they're the best defence in the league. So he probably offers the best goal threat of any defender in the Premier League right now. And they are the best defence. So yeah, for that reason, he's the best defender in the game. Let me know what you think of that in the comments. Now, Alexis McAllister has been in ridiculous form for Liverpool recently. He's got 7 returns in his last 6 Premier League games. And the draft hand expected points data for him for Game Week 33 onwards is looking really, really good. And when you consider that Cody Gakpo seems to have entered a bit of form again, would you rather pick McAllister than, say, Luis Diaz? He's just nailed to start for Liverpool. You're not going to be worried about him playing. He's also a significant amount cheaper, 1.5 million, well, 1.6 million cheaper than Diaz, for example. He takes free kicks, which is like another string to his bow. And I'd ask the question, I think it's probably more unlikely than it is likely to happen. But could he be on penalties now for Liverpool? I would say he is definitely better at taking penalties than Salah. And when Salah's not been on the pitch, he's been taking them for Liverpool. Obviously, got the World Cup final penalty, you know, ticked off as well. So, yeah, he's proven, in my opinion at least, to be a better penalty taker than Salah, who's obviously missed a couple this season as well. And just in general, I think if you're looking to get yourself onto 3 attacking Liverpool players with that double game week in 34 in mind, and of course, you know, game against Palace in 33, which is a nice fixture, and then Fulham and Everton in 34, which is, you know, a decent double game week as they come. And looking after that as well, the fixtures are good, right? So you might want to hold him for the foreseeable. I just think 5.9 million for a guy that's got, like I said, 7 returns in his last 6 games. It's really quite nice and hard to say no to. I remember someone put in the comments in a video last week, someone saying, you know, I've been on my deadline streams kind of putting McAllister down a little bit, but they were joking and saying there's only a matter of time before I talk about him in a video. And well, here he is. I'll admit, I definitely think he's a decent option. I'm conscious, of course, he hasn't played Man United yet in Game Week 32. That's still to happen. But yeah, if he gets through that game unscathed, I definitely think he's a decent option. Now, I'll admit, I've not even spoken about Kai Havertz yet this season, but the guy's currently starting at the number 9 position for Arsenal. He's playing as their centre forward. He's got 9 attacking returns in his last 7 Premier League games. And I think he's pretty much nailed his spot in the Arsenal 11 and played 88 minutes in Game Week 32, but he seems to be a relatively decent now for minutes. He's cheaper than Martin Odegaard, who I'd suggest, you know, if you've already got Saka, most people already have Saka. He's pretty much the most popular player in the game, right? So they might be looking for an extra Arsenal midfielder to double up, and the first instinct might be to go for Martin Odegaard. You know, he's as nailed as it comes in that Arsenal team. But Havertz, he's, what, 1.2 million cheaper, and I'd actually suggest he's a little bit more involved in the attacking returns so far this season. And you look at his numbers, 23 starts, 9 goals and 7 assists is really, really good. Yes, he might be outperforming those underlying data a little bit, but with the fixtures they've got coming up, Aston Villa, Wolves, Chelsea in the double, Tottenham, Bournemouth and Man United, there's goals for Arsenal in all of those games. And by playing at number 9, surely Havertz is going to put himself in the position to score some of them, right? People also don't recognise the guy's really tall. He's a bit of a threat from set pieces as well. I think he's 6'4", so yeah, he's got obviously playing as the number 9, but I also think from set pieces he offers a bit of threat as well. And like I said, those fixtures coming up are really good, and I think there's some goals in there. You know, if you're not already tripled up on Arsenal, Kai Havertz could be a great addition to your team, and he's really good value too. Another player that I think is a decent option, and particularly if Tony has fallen out of favour with Thomas Frank, it was an interesting decision by him to bench him in Game Week 32 and obviously actually pull off a result against Aston Villa. Yes, they didn't win the game, but still did better than they have done in previous games, right? And with Tony, like, he's in every interview, he's basically flirting with big clubs and saying that he wants to leave without actively saying, I want to leave. Could it mean that he's no longer first choice for Brentford? Because they kind of did play better without him in the team. And I think that leaves space, of course, for Brian Mbeumo, as he did at the start of the season with no Tony, to kind of take that talisman role for Brentford. And when, obviously, Tony's not on the pitch, he takes the penalties, takes free kicks. And is a really good player. I mean, the numbers that he's put up this season, obviously mostly without Tony, have been really good. 0.81 expected returns per 90. There's not many players in the league that are competing at that level. I think only the likes of Darwin Núñez, Haaland and Salah have actually, and Cole Palmer now, have better underlying numbers than Mbeumo does. And when you look at the fixture he's got in Game Week 33, I'm particularly looking if you're free hitting in Game Week 34, because you can afford to take, well, kind of a one week punt in Game Week 33. Brian Mbeumo could be that man, because he's got Sheffield United, who, as we all know, is probably the worst team in the league. So yeah, if you're free hitting in 34, you've got potential to take a 1 week punt. I think Brian Mbeumo could be the man there. Genuinely do, especially if Tony, you know, is not first choice anymore for Brentford, which, like I said, I mean, it could be potentially the case. And definitely, obviously, Mbeumo is better with no Tony because he takes those penalties. Yeah, I think he's a really good option. And finally, this one might be a little bit interesting, but Ollie Watkins, the top scorer in FPL currently, is, I would say, a differential amongst engaged managers. You know, a lot of people will be playing their wild card or selling him for a player that doubles in Game Week 34, which, you know, I can't deny, I've done it myself. I think it was a good decision at the time to do. But double game weeks this season, right, have been a little bit overrated, I will say. And I think there are definitely good teams with a good double game week in 34, right? Arsenal and Liverpool. I probably wouldn't pit Watkins over an Arsenal or a Liverpool player, but could you hedge against someone like maybe Solanke or Mateta, who have got a double in 34 with just Watkins, who you know is a proven Premier League multiple goal scorer. You know, he's the top scoring player in FPL, for God's sake. So that kind of says how good of a player he is. 31 starts, and I think that's, what's that? Yes, 31 attacking returns. So an attacking return per start that he's made. And as a result of all of that, what I've said there, could you potentially hedge against players that have a double game week player with just the tried and trusted likes of Ollie Watkins? Yes, I'll admit he's not on penalties, but he's nailed to start every game and play 90 minutes. And I think particularly if you're chasing, right, you might think this is an outrageous thing to say. Let me know in the comments if it is. But could you go for Ollie Watkins instead of the popular double game week assets and hope that the double game week assets flop and it's a disappointing double, and Watkins, you just know he's going to return in those games, and pretty much regardless of the opposition? I'd say, unfortunately, he's about to face Arsenal in 33, so maybe 33 is not the time to buy him with that fixture in mind and how good Arsenal are defensively, right? But 34, he's got Bournemouth, who he could conceivably score against, Chelsea, Brighton and Liverpool, who are all fairly open teams. Yes, Liverpool, probably the best team in the league, but they're still conceding goals. Just a thought, could you hedge against those double game week players with the top scoring player in FPL right now, who I'd actually consider a bit of a differential, Ollie Watkins? Alright, and that's the end of the video. A bit of early thoughts there on the best players to buy and potentially avoid ahead of Game Week 33. If you enjoyed the video, please leave me a like rating. Let me know in the comments what you think of some of those players that I've mentioned. Particularly interested to see what you think about Ollie Watkins. It might be outrageous for me to suggest that, but the guy's scored the most points in FPL, right? And double game weeks we've seen gone by in the past have been a bit disappointing. So could you just predict that he's going to do better than double game week assets with the one fixture? I don't know, just a thought, just an idea. If you enjoyed the video, like I said, leave a like rating. Stick around, you can subscribe to the Golden Goal channel, which should be just here. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you in my next video.